How's it going, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants alike? The undead Matt here with another band showcase episode to infect and please your ears with. That being said, I want to make a quick shout out to our intern, Maya. She actually listened to a few of our recent episodes and made it a point that on our band showcases the audio levels aren't really too balanced too well, and I'm glad she pointed that out because I wasn't really too aware of that. And so to anyone who has listened to our last band showcases, and if your eardrums were badly injured or we had no idea with the uneven levels of listening to the music and then from going to the interview to the music, I want to extend a full apology. I am so sorry that if that has happened to you. I really do hope that you're all okay and that you're still enjoying the band showcase episodes, which I'm sure you are because, well, you're fantastic listeners. But still, I want to apologize for not leveling out those audio levels a little bit better than I should have. So now that I'm aware of the issue, I will definitely make it a note to fix that going forward. Well, starting with today's episode. And speaking of today's episode, I should probably introduce who we have on for this band showcase. Today is in a very, well, I mean, you know me, I'm always going to say it's exciting, but it's another exciting one with a very well hidden gem of a band that goes by the name Major Glen. They are from here. They're from Colorado, from Glendale, Colorado, which, by the way, I have lived in Colorado my entire life, and I didn't know we had a place called Glendale. And we found out about these guys from last year when we went to support Barry Mia when they were doing a concert at the Marquee, and they were supporting the act, and we were just blown away that we've never heard of Major Glenn before. Now, to be fair, everyone on that bill was absolutely fantastic and brilliant, but we felt that Major Glenn stood out just a little bit in the sense that this is a very, very professional band and they're very well orchestrated, and it was just kind of a really one of those moments of you never know what you're going to get if you go and support a local show. You never know who you're going to see and what music you're going to be exposed to. And this was definitely one of those moments. And it was a moment where I looked at Cody and I even said, we got to get them on the show. We got to get these guys on the show for an interview. And so what you're going to be experiencing today is just a really great interview all around, and I think I've kind of introed it enough. So with that in mind, everyone, again, a huge, huge, big, huge thank you to all you amazing listeners. Because, before I jump into this episode, I just want to say again, thank you so much for just continuing to support the show and everything you do. You're all amazing. And with that in mind, let's jump into my interview with Major Glenn. In 3, 2, welcome back, everyone, to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast Band Showcase episode. You know what the show is. You know what it's about. We're bringing on underground, up-and-coming bands who are awesome and we enjoy, and we think they deserve some more spotlight. So we bring them on to talk to them, play some games with them, and just get to know them. I am joined by the amazing group Major Glenn, and I have with me Barrett, Colton, and Ben. Welcome, guys.
Hey, what's going on?
So, yeah, and we got another quarantine interview. So, yeah, let's do this. And you know what's really funny, though, is that we're actually in the same state. And I'm like, this would be like the one time that we would actually have a really solid interview with actually going to be in person.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the irony of not actually being able to do that is setting in, So, again, welcome to the show. Welcome to hanging out with me. So, let's jump into it. Major Glenn, you guys have been around for a good while now, and you've kind of been this really well-kept secret. Strangely so, I'm actually really shocked that not enough people are talking about you or know about you. So who is Major Glenn, and how did you guys come to be?
Well, it's kind of a funny story, really. Well, this is Ben, by the way. I play drums for Major Glenn. How it kind of started to come together is kind of a really cool story, actually. Barrett was living in Daegu, South Korea, and stationed there with the military and the army. And when he was there, he happened to be in a band with my cousin, who is very musically talented. They just so happened to meet when they were there, and created this really awesome band. Excuse me, but Barrett's time there came to a close. He moved to Denver, was stationed out at Buckley, and my cousin decided to come to the U.S. to visit. She still lives in South Korea, but she took a pit stop in Denver. She wanted to say hi to Barrett, was staying over at his place with him and his wife for a couple days, called me up, was like, hey, I want to see you while I'm in town. I haven't seen you in a long time. I'm like, perfect. Where are you staying? She's like, well, he mentions Barrett's uh, apartment building, and I'm like, no shit. I'm looking at that right now. It's like right across the street from where I live. So coincidentally, her old friend Barrett lived right across the street from me. We ended up hanging out that night, hitting it off. We went through that whole thing of, yeah, I'm a musician. I'm a musician too. We should jam. Everybody goes through that. If you meet a musician, you have that conversation. But nine times out of 10, it is, you take it with a grain of salt. You're like, okay, sure, it'll be fun. We'll try it out. Yeah, okay. No, it was pretty funny because that night we hung out. Barrett and I just clicked. We liked all the same music. We were geeking out about all the same stuff, and then we decided, a couple days later to hang out and jam, and it just clicked, and that was the beginning of Major Glen. And yeah, it was just a very coincidental thing that this friendship from South Korea ended up meeting in Glendale, in Glendale, in this area of Denver. But yeah, it's really fun. We've been pretty much best friends ever since. That was a few years ago now. Barrett, anything to add?
4 years ago.
4 years ago now. Yeah, time has flown. Yeah.
Friendship over. You remembered incorrectly.
Yeah. Well, this quarantine is testing us all. So.
No. I don't know if you share this sentiment, but when I used to also like dabble in making music, I always felt like when you were meeting someone else who was also a musician, it was also kind of like going on a date for the very first time to like see how you connect with a person, because that's kind of like setting the ground of what is going to be jamming with this person like word for it. So I don't know if you guys ever get that kind of like weird surreal feeling as well. Like it's just this weird meetup.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and I'll tell you, looking back at that moment, the most horrifying part is when you are, a songwriter like I am. You beat a person who says, "Yeah, I drum." Well, there's a lot hanging in that phrase right there. Yeah, I drum, because to have a band, the heartbeat of the band's got to be a drummer. And so I've met guys who said, "Yeah, I can drum." You go in there and they can play like a 4/4. They'll play "A Hard Day's Night" by the Beatles, and then they'll just kind of like stay with that rhythm pattern. And that's not the case with Ben. As you've heard him live, he's a fucking monster on the drums. Yeah, and that's really made it super easy for me as a songwriter. And then also, we'll get to the point where we kind of hijacked Colton and forced him into our band after we saw how great he was. But having been there as kind of the bedrock for the rhythm, and then Dolan, who's not in the interview right now because he's working, and it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Dolan.
Happy birthday, Dolan.
Happy birthday, Dolan. He's the other guy that is the kind of the original three, and then we weren't complete until we had Colton join the band, which happened here in 2019, late 2018 actually.
And what's kind of crazy, guy. Yeah, Colty is the new guy, but he doesn't feel like the new guy. But the crazy thing about Dolan, who's the bass player for those listening, he Barrett and I, we met. We're like, this is awesome. We can make music. All right, where do we go next? We need a bass player. So Barrett decided to, band mix. Yeah, just like got onto band mix. Was looking for bass players. Found this guy. Thought we'd give him a shot. But coincidentally, first of all, it's a huge coincidence that Barrett lives across the street from me. Turns out that this bass player lived in the same apartment complex that I did too. And he was searching the entire Denver area and found this guy who happened to live in like my same apartment place. So getting together and jamming and practicing was super easy, since we all lived like within a block or so of each other. And then, I'm always skeptical of everybody, I
was skeptical about this interview.
Maybe you should have been, but hopefully this is going okay. But Dolan is the sweetest guy on earth. But I'm always skeptical of new people coming into my apartment, jamming, and then he sold me, when we started shooting the shit about music. And I just mentioned like, oh yeah, I'm a huge Death Cab fan. I love Death Cab for Cutie. And then he just immediately fell into the the bass line from Summer Skin, and which is an iconic.
Not an easy bass line.
And I'm like, all right, this guy's cool. Let's do this. And the threesome of Major Glen started then. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So basically, Major Glen it sounds like Major Glen was meant to happen. It's like the fates or God or whoever you believe in was like, no, you're going to live in the same building. Barrett's going to live right across. This band is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the name itself, Major Glen, comes from Glendale, this little enclave, weird little city in the middle of Denver. And so we definitely hail from Glendale, Colorado, and we say that at the beginning of our shows. And people are like, where the hell's Glendale? Well, you have to kind of look on the map. It's a postage stamp of a town.
A half square mile of debauchery and good times.
Yeah, it's a weird place. It has different laws. You can go out and buy alcohol till midnight or marijuana at the dispensaries. There's strip clubs galore here in this little tiny town.
I'm glad you're. Oh, so sorry. I was saying, I'm glad you're touching that because this is kind of what I was talking about. Like, you guys are like this really, well, I didn't even know about Glendale until, I saw you guys in concert. I didn't know that was a thing. And I've lived here my entire life. And, I was like, oh my God, like, how have we never heard of this band? Like, it blew me away. So basically the thing I'm touching on really quick is that we made the case here a lot about supporting local shows that you might find a band that you never thought you would actually fall in love with or, just enjoy or whoever. And that's why you need to go to these local shows. And that's how we found out about Major Glen. That's how me and my co-host Cody did, because we went and saw you guys open up in support for Barry Mia last year. And so we were just like floored right away. And I'm just like, how is no one talking about these guys? Like they should be on the radio. This is insane. And so that's why I was like, I got to talk to Barrett. I got to see if this dude is willing to come on for an interview, because this is the music they're playing is nuts. Like, there's no way that they're not like getting interviews of the Yin Yang. And just like the fact that you were like, yeah, I would love to come on. Just like, all right, sweet. Let's do it. So
I'd like to touch on two things. What was interesting about coming up in the Denver scene is, one, it's really difficult. It's hard out here. We're kind of on an island in Denver.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is we met Colton when we were competing against him. We were selected at Herman's Hideaway to compete in the Best of the West. It was a Westward magazine run, like Battle of the Bands. And our first night, we go up against this pop punk band called the Maslows, who, if you haven't listened to the Maslows, are by far their best pop punk band. I know that's going to upset some of my other pop punk friends out there, but obviously...
Throwing shade. Starting some fights here.
Start some shit, man. Take that, Stray the Course. Just kidding. Love
Everybody's of ours.
Love you, Ronnie.
I gotta reach out to Stray the Chorus and get him on here for a response.
Definitely. Do it.
We love Ronnie and all the guys, Ronnie and Steve, all the guys that Stray the Course. But we watched the Maslows, which are phenomenal to watch live. And we got to hang out with them after the shows. And none of us won the Best of the West Fest, but we realized we really got along with the guys. And we started gigging. And so we probably had 2 other shows with you guys before we really got to know Colton. Finally, I asked Ben and Dolan what they were, and they were already kind of thinking the same thing. We said, "Hey, we gotta get Colton into Major Glen." So Colton, I mean, you tell, because you were an outsider looking in. You saw us play as a trio. How the hell do you want to get involved with us?
Yeah, well, what's funny is we had gigged with you guys a bunch, and it was always really fun. And then one day I get this Facebook message from Barrett that's like, "Hey, I asked your mom's permission if I could ask for your hand in marriage." And by that, I mean, he like asked my drummer if he would be allowed to ask me to play guitar for some of their shows. And I was like, you asked my drummer before you asked me? That's very polite of you. But yeah, it's been really fun.
So if come back to the example, if meeting another musician is similar to like going on a date for the first time, I guess does that make drummers the dad and moms?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I see Ben shaking his head. He's like, in more ways than you know.
Sometimes I feel like the crotchety old dad, but get a few drinks in me and that'll go away.
You guys, I think another good testament is that, and coming back to when I talked to Barrett that first time, is that you guys have a very like warm energy just amongst all of you. And the reason I say it like that is that it makes it really easy to talk to you guys. And I think that's a really great asset to have because, whenever there's a fan that goes up to a musician that they really adore, there's always that nervousness of just, I don't want to say something wrong. I don't want to word vomit all over this person that I love their music they make. But, talking to you guys, it's just like feeling like I've been talking to people that I've known in my whole neighborhood, for my whole life. You have a very good energy, and you see that in your show because, again, when you guys just came up on that stage, it just blew us away. So kudos to you on that. I just wanted to let you know that that's generally the feel that we get from you guys and why we love you.
Thanks, man.
So going forward, I want to know, were you guys willing to play a quick horror game with me before we continue on?
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
If it's trivia, I'm gonna fail, but let's do it.
I definitely promise it's not trivia, okay? So this is going to test some bonds, all right? And this is going to test a lot of these bonds, but so here we go. All right, so Major Glen is going on tour right now, and as you guys are looking around, and you're touring the states, you see a nice campground coming up, and you're like, oh wow, they actually have a lake we can go, take a dip in. Let's go relax. Come to find out, you're going to go hang out at Camp Crystal Lake, and now Jason Voorhees is starting to hunt the entire band of Major Glen down. So so here's the game: how would you escape, and who do you think would be most likely to survive?
Barrett would definitely survive the most because of his 14 years of military training.
Yeah.
all right, Barrett. How would you survive, Barrett?
With Camp Crystal Lake, I mean, obviously the slowest runner is Ben. I'm gonna sacrifice Ben first, and then Colton's light enough that if he gets injured, I can carry him out on my back. But definitely Ben's gonna die. He's going down for.
Ben's going down. Sorry.
I'll actually push him towards Jason and let him fend for himself.
I mean, I accept that. I'm not a fast person, nor do I really run.
You know what's so funny? I just have this image of just you guys running away and just Ben just on the ground, just nah, what else is new? And they're just Colin's probably confused and terrified. Why are you picking me up, Barrett? And Barrett shoots just at him because you're lighter than Ben. And both of you look back at Ben, he's just what can you do?
Oh, that's hilarious. That's exactly right, too. You nailed it.
Now, if Dolan were there, he also would survive. Dolan is a survivor. So yeah,
strong.
He's very strong and he can kick some ass. So he might be willing to defend Ben for a little bit, but I think even he would let Ben go, just and get out of there with us.
I think he would just look at Jason and stun him with his good looks, and then he would save all of us.
Yeah, no, we're fortunate that we have Dolan. He is the best looking member of the band. And then Colton's also one of the best looking. Ben and I are married, so we don't care. We have beautiful wives, and we're pretty pleased. But
achievement made. Don't need to keep working for that one. Okay, coming back to it. So you guys, again, you're this well-kept secret. You're from Glendale, and a fantastic band all around. One thing I want to ask you, though, is that a lot of local bands right now are obviously struggling with having to delay shows, or they're not able to go and do whatever they were wanting to do this summer, and it's affecting everyone. So I want to ask you guys, how are you surviving during this, and do you have any plans for when you can finally this thing starts to let up?
Yeah, definitely. So we were really fortunate. I'll plug our new single. We're very fortunate to kind of have some in-house ability to do some production, and we do a lot of our tracking and stuff with the Spot Studio. Shout out to those guys, really great work. They're out there in Evergreen, Colorado now, and they help out a lot of local bands. But we also are able to put Magic touches because Colton he's a very capable producer. We had this demo called Quarantine, which we wrote in 2018. I shit you not. And it was more a song about a kind of a psychological arsonist this kind of weird psychopath, but it ended up fitting, the fact that the entire Earth was in quarantine last month and still, a large portion now. So we were able to kind of dust that song off, put Colton on there. He was able to track new guitars, put some real pizzazz on there, and we released the single and got some pretty positive reviews. So that's been really positive to have a song we released in the last couple months. And in the near term, we want to kind of harden our position with more equipment that allows us to do recording from distance. So getting Ben's his drums tracked and getting Dolan some inputs into a computer, and so that we can send all that stuff to Colton and continue to produce music while being socially distant. And then in the long term, we're really looking at doing an East Coast tour starting in Philadelphia and going up to Boston.
Wow. So, I think what's great about that, and I kind of hope that a lot of, if we have any other listeners who are, starting their own bands, whether they're new or not, I kind of hope they kind of just really listen to what you just said there, Bear, because I think it's really good right now for any content creator to still keep with a long-term game plan, a mid-term, and a short-term. Because I think a lot of people are getting, not meaning to, but like getting into a kind of like a stagnant area of not knowing when they can create something and when they can come out with it. So, I think that's a really great thing to actually have this huge plan still. And I think and I commend you guys for that. And that's exciting too. So your quarantine song about quarantine, that isn't about quarantine. They made in 2018. Came out, and you came out with real positive reviews. I checked it out as well, and it's a really catchy tune. I also think we promoted it on the podcast Instagram as well. So it's a really, just, you guys have this really, I think the way I want to say it is that your approach to music is a very calculated approach. I've noticed. I can tell that when you're playing your songs and the songs that you record, that you've definitely thought out each and every part. And I know that's a weird statement to make because it's, well, yeah, doesn't every band plan that out? Not all the time. Sometimes it's mostly just finding a good rhythm and keeping with that. But every time we listen to you guys and every time I hear you guys, there's definitely like these small little things that I can hear in the recordings that show that you were really paying attention to what you're doing. I mean, do you guys consider yourselves perfectionists when it comes to your music?
No, that's funny you say that because I've played in multiple bands and this is by far the least perfectionist. And I just want to say what's really cool about like Barrett as a songwriter is he's more of a conductor. So we get together to jam and he'll just be like, all right, Ben, get me going with like a boom, 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 boom. And then he says, Dolly, hop on the bass, just stay on E. And then Dolly's like, da, 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 da. And then we start jamming, and then Barrett makes up lyrics that just like what he's been feeling from the last week, and he never writes them down all the way through recording. So whenever we get to recording, that's just like the lyrics that stuck with him the strongest, and all of us, and we remembered, and then we record it, and it's written in stone.
So what you're basically telling me and everyone listening to this interview right now is that when it comes to your music, you guys just do it on the spot and you just conduct it right then. I like the word. I like that you said conduct. That's a better word, and that you conduct it right then and there. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, it's very organic, which I'm really stoked that from your perspective, it didn't sound that way. It sounded more thought out, but it's really fun playing with this band for that reason.
Well, you pointed out it's conducted, so I mean, in a way, it is kind of thought out. With Barrett coming in and be like, "All right, keep it going, keep it going."
Well, that's true. That's true.
I like that. No, that's it's just more credit to you guys because it's it's one of those things where it's I feel like I would have to witness it too in order to really appreciate the craftsmanship when it comes to making your music. So that's really interesting, and I think that may add some more authenticity. Barrett, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say I've actually never written a lyric down for Major Glen.
Can you believe that?
It's all kind of there in my head, and I asked the guys, "Hey, does this narrative make sense?" And if they approve, we go for it. And the other thing you should know about Major Glen is I and Colton's also a songwriter. He's been since joining the band, he's been integral in creating new songs. And the song "Be Free," for instance, is 90% his. The way that he brought that to the band, and that's one of our singles that is out there. But what's interesting about that kind of push and pull is that Colton and I produce, I don't know how many different demos have I sent you, Colton, over the last year?
Like 120.
Yeah, like so we sort through these kind of riffs. I say, does anybody want to work on this? And normally it has to be a 4 out of 4 vote. Everybody has to say, yeah, we want to do this. And that's kind of how the music gets started. And so once we get a 4 out of 4 vote on one of those ideas, the other guy that, and again, he's not here, Dolan, though, has provided at least half of our songs through bass lines. A song that'll start with one of his personally written bass lines that I'll take, appropriate. Ben will then appropriate and put his own music on there. Ben, what do you see when you do the songwriting process?
No, it's really cool because we can come up with full-fledged songs from very little. You know, like Dolan will come in with just one bass line, and then you know, pretty soon by the end of the night we have a whole song. Sometimes, you know, that's happened before, or even, you know, our song Highline, for instance, that came to be. That was maybe an hour it took. Barrett just started playing that opening guitar riff, and I'm like, that's pretty sweet. Kind of getting some Oasis vibes off of that. And then I think like within an hour or something, we had that entire song done. It just came to us, and now it's like one of my favorite songs. It kicks off our first album, and it's awesome. But no, what's great is, you know, Barrett has these ideas. You know, primarily he is the idea guy. You know, everybody does come with ideas, but Barrett definitely has the volume. There's so many different ideas that come at us. And what's great is that even though he might have a whole song kind of planned out, you know, the chord structure, everything, chorus, bridge, the whole gamut, if we don't like it, it doesn't go. And when we start playing it in practice, he gives us free range, you know, creatively. You know, he's not like this dictator taking over the progress and formation of the song. He understands that we know what we're doing, and if we have some good ideas, that it all kind of comes together. So it's like this big collaborative effort, and it's really fun how that kind of works out.
Yeah, I think to sum up, like Barrett feels like nothing is precious until it finally is, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
it's important to me, you know, when I started with Ben, you know, when you get a guy like Ben as your drummer, and I'll say this, it's between him and another guy, and I'll give a shout out to Beatmaster. Those are the two top drummers in Denver, and fight me, you know. These guys are the best. Obviously, I think Ben is the best drummer in Colorado. Having a guy like that means that as the idea guy, the idea song guy, I'm not going to fight him. He's an expert freaking drummer, and everything we do in the band is 25% split, you know, everywhere. And so everybody gets a songwriting credit because Dolan's bass lines are that important. Colton's lead guitar work is that important that, you know, none of the songs are ever going to be exclusively mine because I couldn't do it. The song couldn't do it without them, and I couldn't do anything without the band. So.
whoop, whoop.
You know, Barrett, and this goes the same for you as well, Ben and Colin, that there's a real genuine nature between the three of you guys. And I think that's what is the most appealing part of just being able to talk and hang out with you, is that you're all very genuine. Whether it's talking about your music and how you make it, you're very genuine about it, or how you treat each other and look at each other. There's just a very genuine, like, brotherly bond there. And I think that's very attractive just as an audience member, just to see that. And so I commend you guys for doing that. And the fact that you guys can just kind of, you know, curb egos and come and make music and collaborate on it together. I mean, those are always the bands that have always stood out, in my opinion, is the ones that work on their music together, and it's just not one person, you know, dictating it. So it's really great just kind of hearing what you talk about and how you guys make your music. And it's just, all I could say, I said it at the beginning of the review, I'll say it again. How does no one else know about you guys? I'm completely shocked. It's insane that you're not, you know, on the radio. It's insane.
Well, it's what, you know, you doing these things because I know that you guys are a burgeoning podcast and you're getting out there and putting your name out, and you're creating content. Like, you know, the struggle. Like, it's hard to, anytime you get a fan, anytime you get somebody says, like, I want to commit to listening to Major Glen, you got to cherish that person, like you, Matt. And so when you came up to me after the show, and then I went and checked out your content page. That was last year, and I listened to one of your podcasts. Like, these guys are doing the Lord's work, right? When you're pulling up bands like us, right, trying to help us out, and I think it goes both ways, and being kind of not competitive against other bands in the Denver scene is another thing that we've really kind of tried to cherish. So Stray the Course, the Maslows, there's other bands out there that we get in contact. Barry Mia on Instagram, and all that's done is through Instagram. And we got a random Instagram notification from Barry Mia, Devin, who's running that, and he really hooked us up and gave us a marquee show, which is where you saw us. And that was all because he needed bands, and he had listened to some of our music, and that kind of cooperativeness between other bands in Denver has just been really helpful for us. As far as getting on the radio, we compete. We try to put our stuff out there to 102.3 or 93.3 or 93.3 Punk Tacos. Colorado Punk Rock Army, that's another great resource. They've been supportive of us on Instagram. All these different people, it's kind of created this unified thing. And I know Major Glen's not a typical punk band per se, but we have huge punk influence. For me, it's like Black Flag, The Wire, Buzzcocks, kind of that old school 80s punk, The Clash. If you look at Colton, obviously, Colton, who are some of your punk rock people?
Yeah, like Bouncing Souls, Anti-Flag, Blink-182, even though it's some people
and
make fun of me.
Ben's is Steely Dan. That's his punk.
Look.
Whoa. Remember me not to get into a fight with you, Ben. I know about those Steely Dan fans.
I'm a music nerd. I can geek out about that shit, but yeah.
Real quick, so you touched on a lot of great things. One thing I want to point out real quick is another piece of advice that I'm hoping, again, that people who want to get in bands, same thing, heard you say, Barrett, is that you don't try to compete with the other bands around you. You try to collaborate and work with them. And, we share that same sentiment with you. We have the same model here for the podcast. We don't try to compete with other podcasts. We try to work with them and collaborate with them. And it all comes back to that saying of never try to compare your journey to someone else's, because you will always end up disappointed. Because and so I like that. I love that you guys are focused on yourselves and you're just like, yeah, let's butt shoulders with people. I want to touch on the punk part real quick. So, and this is going to make me probably outspoken in the community, I feel, but I've always been to the firm belief that the punk culture and punk in general is more associated with your mentality and how you look at it, and not the clothes you wear and not the things you say. I mean, obviously we all love studded jackets, we love vests that, just are flared up and we can, it's something I work on. I make vests just as a hobby as well. And so with that in mind, there's always been that idea of just, punk is a specific thing. And the thing is when you start making punk a specific thing, you are taking it away from its original meaning and what it stood for. Yeah. So I think that's also, so basically what I'm saying is that although you guys don't have mohawks and you don't smell like day old laundry or anything.
Barrett looks like a standard dad.
It comes down to what you're playing and how you're playing it and what you're saying. And if pure and simple is if you feel that you are punk in what you do, and by doing your own thing, which technically that is the case, and what is considered punk is doing your own thing by yourself.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, you guys are one of the most punk bands I've ever seen. And again, if that gives me any flack, that's fine. This is the Punk Hardcore Podcast, and I have the platform to say that.
Thanks for saying that. I really appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, so it reminds me of the scene in the movie SLC Punk. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So Jason Segel's character is the one I most identify with. He wears kind of preppy clothes, but he'll go smash, he'll smash a dashboard on a car.
Yeah.
He'll smash the windscreen, and that is definitely who I am. And I kind of take on that alter ego when I'm performing. I'm definitely kind of an angry. It's like my Mr. Hyde to my Dr. Jekyll type situation.
Yeah.
Punk is a mentality, not a fashion statement.
Yep.
So get it right, people. Yeah. So before we end out today, I got one more. It's not as much of the game; it's just our favorite question that we love to ask every single band that comes on a band showcase episode. And then I'm going to ask you where everyone can follow and support y'all. But getting to the question. So again, this is the question we ask every single band when we get near the end of the interview, and this is the one that always trips up everybody. So I hope you're ready. So I want to ask you, what is a crazy story you're willing to share from a show that you have played or have attended? You're welcome to talk about whatever. The only thing that we ask is that you weren't involved in a crime.
Man, shoot, our show at Moe's that we had with the Maslows was when we had the film crew and everything was just insane. I don't know. It nothing terribly crazy. It was just one of those shows that we just felt in the moment and just like rocked our asses off. And it's amazing that we had a film crew document it too, because it's fucking awesome. But my favorite part, and Dylan would probably disagree, would be at the very end of our set. We end all of our sets with "Love Myself to Death" because it's just a fucking rocker. And but it was so hot, and at the end, when I'm just kind of going nuts on the drums, Dolan's laying on his back on the stage, just going to town on his bass. It ends, it rings out. He throws his bass to the side and just books it for the alley and just like erupts, just pukes his brains out. After, like playing his heart out, and just we demolished that set, and I guess we demolished it a little too much. And
I was driving. I got done, and I was just this, sweaty mess. Ben is a sweaty mess. I go outside. I'm looking for Dolan because he ran off the stage, and he's expelled all the demons, right? Into the parking lot back there, and I'm like, Dolan, are you okay? And he turns around, he's like, I'm good. Like, gives me a thumbs up. He comes back in, but it was probably 110 on that stage, and actually that was before Colton was in Major Glen. Colton ended up, they played the next set there at Moe's, and they rocked the house. But yeah, that was a great night. We have footage to prove it, and pro footage. What a show that was.
So wait, okay. So for a second there, it sounded like all the guys in Major Glen were going out to throw up at the same time. I was like,
two of us were.
I was like, we're gonna have like that Family Guy episode where they're just like vomiting on everything.
Yeah, the Ipecac. Yeah.
I see someone puking, I start puking.
Colton, what about you? Do you have a story you'd like to share?
Yeah, this is just a quick one from the last time we got to play before quarantine. Was at Streets Denver, and we were the opener for, what was that band's name?
Blacktop Mojo.
Blacktop Mojo, which was a touring band. So most of the people there weren't there to see us; they're there to see the headliner. But we, brought the rock as much as we could. And after the set, I was walking through the crowd. And by the way, Barrett is a self-proclaimed the sweaty bald guy, that likes to rock the stage. That's what he likes to think of himself as. And I overheard someone in the crowd just lean over to her husband and say, "Aren't you glad we came for the openers? Did you see his crazy eyes?" Because Barrett likes to open. He's
a very expressive person.
You got to come see one of our shows, and you're gonna understand.
I've seen Barrett's eyes. I've seen those. I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember telling Cody, "Don't make any fast movements, all right?"
Yeah, he looks like he could eat you or something. So that just made me smile so much. It made me want to keep playing forever.
Well, no, but seriously, that ferocity, that synergy, even with Crazy Eyes, does make you want to go even more out, because it's kind of like the whole thing of if nobody's dancing, as soon as one person starts dancing, everybody else is going to start dancing. In this case, instead of dancing, as soon as Barrett has Crazy Eyes, everybody else wants to get the Crazy Eyes and start going nuts.
Right. Yeah, get a little mosh pit going. It was a blast, man. It was a blast.
Man, Major Glen, you guys are just really fun to talk to. I just want to be able to talk to you guys all day. Unfortunately, nobody wants to listen to an 8-hour episode besides me. So that's just,
yeah.
But with that in mind, where can everybody go to support Major Glen? How can everybody help you guys out?
Spotify, and then the other thing is just refer us to your friends. And if you know any writers out there, that's something that's always important. We like we like to be published and have critics kind of look at our stuff. We've been lucky with 303 magazine to write us up, but yeah, that kind of word of mouth, getting us out there and to just staying with you. And if you message Major Glen, we're going to message you back within 10 minutes. If you want a t-shirt, we'll send you a t-shirt. Like, we've got all that stuff. It's not about money. It's about making connections with fans for us. And so we want to make a fan for life and help you be your favorite rock band.
And kind of a big thing too is like Barrett has always said we're the nicest band in Denver, and that's kind of what we thrive to be. Like, if you want to hang out, let's hang out. Like, we're not going to be those dicks on stage who brush you off, and we're here to be cool with you. Yeah, we like you. We like
you
people.
Can find us on Instagram at Major Glen, and just want to know real quick that while at the time of this recording our album has been taken off Spotify, we do have some singles up, and we will be re-releasing the album. There was just some technical difficulties we had to work through, but more music is on the way.
All right, ghouls, gals, creeps, mutants. Major Glen is, again, this hopefully not going to be a well-kept secret anymore, and everybody will know who they are after this. Ghouls, gals, creeps, mutants, you know how to do it. You know how to support these bands. You know how to take care of them, because you're also amazing badasses as well. So please check out Major Glen. Listen to their music. If any of y'all, I'm even going to implore you, if any of y'all do happen to work for a magazine or know anyone that does or know any writers, please, please, please show Major Glen. Tell them to reach out to them. With that in mind, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, we give one big, huge more thank you to you, Barrett, Ben, and Colton, and all the guys at Major Glen. Also Dolan, because he couldn't be here. Happy birthday to him again.
Happy birthday.
There you have it. That was my interview with the band Major Glen. All fantastic dudes around. Really, really good energies, really good dudes. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, you heard it. It was fantastic. And I kind of, really just want to go and hang out with them some more, because they have just that type of energy about them. They have that, like, let's hang out, let's talk about whatever type of energy. And that's kind of, I think that's a very valuable quality to have if you're a musician or a content creator or just someone who definitely, has to talk with the public. You're just, that it's just a good quality. That's all I'm really getting at. So with this in mind as well, we're going to be jumping into 3 songs that they sent us. And with this it's just, again, I want to give a huge thank you to all you listeners. One thing I pointed out in the interview, and I do genuinely mean as well, is that all of you listeners, all you amazing ghouls, gals, crepes, and mutants do such a fantastic job with supporting these bands. You go out and you listen to their music and you follow their pages, and it's just so, like, it's just one of these moments that we're so proud of the fan base we have, because you guys, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, like, we do this call to action with these band showcase episodes of going to support these bands, and you do it, and it's just, we're so proud to have you as listeners. I mean, honestly, I know every single podcast, every like 10,000s of podcasts always say that they have the best listening audience ever, and usually it's just to retain listeners to come back. But I do genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, hope you can hear the genuine sincerity of it. Appreciate all of you, because you are literally the best fan base in our opinion. Again, that makes us biased, but again, I don't see much other podcasts where the fans are going to immediately support these bands that we're talking about. Again, ghouls, gals, creeps, mutants, I'm sorry for the long outro. I just know we don't say thank you to all of you listeners enough, and I just want all of y'all to know that everything you do and all the support you give us and these bands is hugely appreciated. So with that being said, I'm going to get off my little preachy soapbox here, and I'm going to introduce these songs we're going to listen to. So they sent us a few songs today. They sent us 3 to check out, called Quarantine, Violent Streets, and Weather Vane. All right, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, check out Major Glen, give them some support, give them some love, and let's jump into some brand new music.
ain't such fun. Now you tell me that we are over when I thought that we'd just begun. We used to talk about the weather. We used to talk about the times we had. We used to dream about forever. We used to talk about the times ahead. And then